You thought that you weren't strong enough to speak up because you felt really scared. You thought you weren't smart enough to add something valuable to the conversation, and you just watched yourself do it. You watch yourself busting past these walls that you thought you had, and then your idea of who you are changes. Even though this work will challenge you, possibly more than anything has challenged you before, it will also make you more strong and more confident than you have ever felt before. Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the Art of Speaking Up podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jess. I'm the host and creator of this podcast, and I'm a coach for professional women. I am here to help you build confidence, find your voice at work, and elevate into leadership roles. And this episode is for you if you feel like you have more inside of you to access and to offer through the way that you show up professionally, but you can't always seem to access that deeper potential. It's like there's more in you that wants to come out, but you're not sure how to let it out. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about why this happens, why we find ourselves in these situations where we feel like we have more to give, but we don't understand why it's so difficult for us to access that and reach more of our potential in the way we show up. And I'm going to share some suggestions with you on how to come closer to truly operating at your full potential. Now, what I'm going to start by doing in today's episode is I'm going to define what it even means to be showing up and operating at your full potential. And then I will dive deeper into some of the obstacles that get in the way of doing that, and then some of the solutions. So here's how I think about it. We all have a sort of ceiling or a peak or a maximum point that represents the most that we can give, the best we can do, the strongest we can show up. It's this maximum point or this ceiling where we truly are giving it our all. And I think that we've all had moments in life where we've really experienced that feeling of knowing that we gave something our all. And we walked away from, a situation or a challenge or a milestone with a feeling of pride, knowing that we put everything that we had into it. And then on the flip side, we also have the inevitable instances in our careers and in our lives where we know that we didn't give something 100%. And we could have given it more. And that can feel not so great, right? Like that can come with a whole host of feelings. But basically, I think about it as like there is this point, like this maximum point where it represents 100% of what we have to offer. And that's what I think about as operating at our full potential. Now, the cool thing about this is that 100% line of whatever our full potential is, we can actually raise that ceiling and get that higher through up-leveling our skills and up-leveling our confidence. But for any given moment in our lives, we have some sort of ceiling that represents our ceiling of capability at that moment in time based on who we are in that moment and the skills and confidence and capabilities we have at that moment. And today's episode is really about closing the gap between how you're showing up day to day at work now and that 100% mark. So if you feel like you're not giving it your all, not giving it 100%, I'm going to be explaining why, and we're going to be talking about closing that gap. I just wanted to raise the idea that we can also raise our ceiling. And there might be a point in your career where what used to be your 100%, like what used to look like you giving your all, you've become so much more skilled and so much more confident that you can do far better than that. So I just want to share this idea that our maximum point, our quote unquote ceiling, is not static. It's something that we can actually raise over time. Now, I believe that the reason why people get stuck with this feeling of like, I know I have more potential, I'm not tapping into it, I want to tap into it, but I can't figure out why. I think that the reason it can feel so confusing and frustrating is because there are 3 different ways that we can tap into our full potential, and all 3 of those ways are completely different, but we often mix them up with one another, which can leave us feeling stuck and sometimes feeling frustrated and confused. So I'm going to walk you through the 3 different ways that we can really operate at our highest potential, at our maximum ceiling level. And as we go through it, I'm going to share some thoughts with you on how you can figure out which of these areas are the areas where you have the biggest opportunity for growth. And I'm going to share with you some patterns that I see because I have the advantage as a coach of working really intimately with my clients. When I'm supporting my clients, which I do mostly through my signature program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy, when I'm working with them, I'm getting to really see the patterns that emerge over time because of the number of clients that I have the privilege of working with. And so as I see those patterns, I'm able to share some of that with you on the podcast because there's a really good chance if you're listening to this, you probably have lots of similarities with my clients. Now, I don't want to treat anyone as a monolith. We're all unique individual humans, but what I found is that my podcast and my coaching programs tend to attract women who are similar to me. And this makes sense, right? My perspective resonates with you and with the women who join my programs because we have things in common. And so I want to share with you some of the patterns that I've observed with my clients because it will help you start to see why you might be stuck and why it might be difficult for you to access your full potential. Okay, so there are 3 ways that we can access our full potential. The first way is through our work ethic. The second way is intellectually. And the third way is emotionally. These are 3 different ways, so I'm going to explain what each of them is. So the first way is through our work ethic. So when we are operating at 100% of our potential through our work ethic, what this means is we are working as hard as we possibly can. We're putting in as many hours as we possibly can. We're giving as much of our focus, time, and attention as we possibly can. This is us working as hard as we are able to. So we have a maximum amount of time and focus and energy that we can put into our work. And if we're putting in as much as we possibly have, that would be us operating at our full potential when it comes to work ethic. Now, most of the women who I have worked with are already either operating at 100% or very close to operating at 100% when it comes to work ethic. So I don't think that I have ever had someone come to me and say, Jess, I'm not operating at 100%. I want you to help me reach my full potential. I've never had that happen and then discovered that that person wasn't working hard and wasn't putting in the time and wasn't really giving it a full effort. Like that is never the issue. And if you're listening to this podcast, there's a really good chance that that's your situation as well, that you work really hard and that when it comes to work ethic, you are at your full potential. There's not a lot more hours in the day or a lot more energy or focus that you can give. And this is already showing us one of the reasons why it can be so frustrating when we feel stuck and we feel like we're not achieving our full potential. Because if we're working really hard and we're giving all we've got when it comes to work ethic, it can feel maddening then when we're not experiencing the growth and the impact that we want to experience professionally. Because it's like, well, I'm giving it 100%. Why do I still feel like I'm not reaching my full potential and not achieving my full potential? Well, the reason is because work ethic is one of 3 ways that we can operate at our full potential. And for so many of us, we're already operating at our full potential when it comes to work ethic, and the opportunity for growth sits in the other buckets that I'm going to be talking about. Which brings me to the next bucket. So the next way that you can be operating at your full potential is intellectually. This is different than work ethic. Work ethic is about putting in the hours, being willing to work really hard, put in the time, put in the sweat equity. Working at your full potential intellectually is different. It means that when you are working, you are bringing the best of your thinking, the best of your problem solving, the best of your thought leadership. You really are thinking at a deep level. You're engaging intellectually at a very deep level. So you're not just like casually, lightly doing your work and solving the problems, but you're really diving deeply into them and giving them the best of your thinking. Now, we can start to see how working at your full potential from an intellectual level is not the same as operating at your full potential from a work ethic level, because you can have a really solid work ethic where you're putting in all these hours, but you're not necessarily engaging deeply at an intellectual level. You're not really bringing your best thinking and problem solving. You're just clocking a lot of hours. And the reverse can be true as well. You could have a questionable work ethic where you're not working a zillion hours, but when you are working, you are really thinking deeply and problem solving at a high level. Now, what I see really often when it comes to operating at your full potential intellectually is that I typically see an opportunity for growth. And what I typically see with this is people underestimating the extent and depth of their intellectual capability. And because they're underestimating it, they're not exercising it as powerfully as they could be. So when I'm supporting someone and they say to me, Jess, I'm not operating at my full potential, please help me with that. Because that's like a huge thing that I'm working on. Every time I kick off my group program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy, one of the first things I learn from my clients is, what are we working on? What's most important to you? And nearly every single person I support wants to feel like they are showing up and operating at their fullest potential. So this is a goal that comes up so often in the work I do. It's probably the thing I love most when it comes to getting to coach and support my clients. And what I see when it comes to operating at one's maximum level intellectually is typically, it's not that people don't want to be operating at their maximum level intellectually. They do. The women that I work with, and so many of the women who listen to this podcast, they want to be making their maximum contribution from an intellectual level. They want to bring their best thinking to the work that they do. The desire is there. Typically, what I see getting in the way of them operating at their full potential intellectually is a lack of belief in the power of their own intellect. Because in order for us to operate at 100% of our potential from an intellectual level, we have to believe that we are smart, we have to believe that we are intellectually capable, and we have to believe that we have something valuable to offer. If we don't believe that, if we believe that other people know more, if we believe that we aren't very smart, then there's no reason for us to push ourselves intellectually, to engage super deeply intellectually, to bring our best thinking to the work we do, because we don't believe that we have great thinking within us. So we don't push ourselves to think and problem solve at a deeper level intellectually. Now, I'm going to take us deeper into this rabbit hole. Here's what I see most often with the women that I support, and I have a feeling that you are going to relate to this. What I see most often is that typically there are some situations where you feel very confident in your intellect, and in those situations, you are operating at 100%. Like you are operating at your full intellectual potential in those situations, because in those specific contexts and situations, you feel confident in your intellect. You know that you have the knowledge. You know that you're experienced. You know that you're competent. And so when you're in those contexts, you are operating at 100% of your intellectual capability, and it feels really damn good. So examples of that are the places in your job where you feel like an expert, you feel like you know what you're doing, you feel super comfortable. It tends to be the things that you enjoy doing most and that are just like squarely within your zone of competence. But the interesting thing about our confidence around our own intellectual capabilities is that confidence can wax and wane depending on the situation or circumstance that we're in. So you might have situations where you feel really confident in your intellect, but you might also have other situations at work where you don't feel confident in your intellect at all. And what I see most often is that tends to be situations where either you're in a room with people who have more years of experience than you, or in situations where you're in a room with people and the subject of the conversation isn't squarely within your area of expertise. Those are really common examples of contexts where you feel less confident in your intellectual capabilities. And because you feel less confident, this is the most important part, because you feel less confident, you operate below 100%. But you're not operating below 100% because you lack the intellectual capability. This is really, really important. You're operating below 100% because you think that you lack the intellectual capability. You have thoughts that other people are smarter than you, and you believe those thoughts. You take those thoughts as true. And so you don't contribute at 100% of your intellectual capacity. And what's tricky about this is that because you're not joining the conversation, you're not contributing, you never get to build up the proof and the evidence that you actually do have a more sophisticated intellectual capability than you thought you had. Because when you're not sharing suggestions, you never get to see people react to them. So your brain stays stuck in this old false limiting belief that you don't have the intellectual capability to hold your own in this conversation. And sometimes the only way for us to break a limiting belief is to go out and gather evidence that that belief is wrong. And the way that you gather evidence that your belief that you are not intellectual enough is wrong is by contributing in those conversations and then seeing your stakeholders say, oh, that's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought about that. Or hearing your boss say, oh, that's a really great idea. Let's talk about that. That could actually work. When you have moments like that, you experience what I think of as a really healthy kind of cognitive dissonance where you're like, oh, wait, I thought I wasn't smart enough for this conversation, but my boss just said that what I contributed is really useful. Hold on a minute, this isn't making sense. I have conflicting information. And that helps you start to see like, oh, maybe this belief that I don't have the intellectual capacity required to be a part of this is wrong. Maybe I actually do have the intellectual capacity. And then what happens is you start contributing more and more. And then you start operating at your highest potential intellectually. Another sign that you aren't operating at your highest potential intellectually, and there's opportunity for you to stretch yourself and push yourself, is if you are getting feedback from people around you, like your boss and leaders, that they want to see more leadership from you. They want to see more from you. When they're saying that they want to see more from you, a lot of times what's happening is that they're seeing that you have more intellectual capacity that is not being exercised. And they want you to exercise it because it benefits them and it benefits the company and it also benefits you, but it also benefits them. So they want you to bring more of that thinking and more of that problem solving. But that often happens because their view of what you're capable of intellectually is bigger and bolder than your own view of what you're capable of intellectually. And they're trying to push you to act based on the actual level of intellectual capacity you have. So the way that I like to think about it is that when people are telling you that they want to see more leadership from you and that you have more to offer, and then you have a thought like, no, I don't have more to offer. The way that I like to think about it is you're wrong and they're right. You're wrong that you don't have more to offer, and they're right that you do have more to offer. And listen, that might be hard for you to accept as true, but what I will say is that after me working with well over 100 clients, that's the pattern that I see over and over. So do what you will with that data point, but it's worth questioning if you have any limiting belief around that. So that's intellectual capacity. And to wrap that one up in a bow before we move on to the final one, operating at your maximum potential emotionally, on the intellect piece, the thing that I would want to leave you with is for you to identify which parts of my job are easy for me to operate at 100% intellectually. I want you to list all of them out. And then I want you to make another list of where are all the places in my professional life where I'm operating below 100% intellectually. And I would pick one that you want to work on. So for example, maybe you want to work on, okay, when I have our big team meeting, I'm not operating at 100% intellectually. I'm not trusting my ideas. I'm not sharing them. I'm not bringing my best thinking into that space. But once you identify what that context is that you want to focus on, I want you to ask yourself, what would I have to believe about myself to get myself to operate closer to 100%? And typically, the thing that you need to believe is that your ideas are needed and valuable, that your thinking is going to make a difference in the room, and that you sharing it versus not is going to impact the results that your team and your company are able to deliver. When you believe that that's true, you will feel more incentivized to push yourself closer to the edges of your full potential intellectually. Now, I want to go on to the third one, which is operating at your full potential emotionally, because this is the biggest, most important one. And it also affects the one that I just talked about. So it also affects operating at your highest potential intellectually. Hey, Jess. Sorry to interrupt the episode, but I'm trying to give myself a makeover and I've been struggling to put on these fake eyelashes for the past 3 hours. Can you help me? Hey, sure. Come a bit closer. Closer. Hold still. Okay, great. They're on. Wow, that was fast. Thanks. You're welcome. Is there anything else I can help you make over besides your face? Well, actually, now that you mention it, I have a big meeting I'm leading this afternoon, and my agenda feels stale and boring. I'd love to give my meeting agenda a makeover. I have the perfect resource for you. It's called the 3-Minute Meeting Makeover. What's that? It's a quick 3-step checklist that'll help you give your meeting agenda a makeover so you can sound more crisp and impressive leading the meeting. And best of all, unlike those eyelashes of yours that you struggled with for 3 whole hours, you can read through this checklist in just under 3 minutes. Okay, where do I find this? The 3-Minute Meeting Makeover worksheet lives inside the free resource library, which is a collection of free video courses, worksheets, and ebooks. You can access the free resource library by clicking the link in the show notes or going to jessguzikcoaching.com/free resources. I am so excited. With all the time the 3-Minute Meeting Makeover is going to save me, I think I have time to do some contouring. Ooh, and sugar waxing. Can you help me out? I'd love to, but we need to get back to the episode, so I suppose I can't. Okay, bye. So we're going to move to the third category, which is operating at your fullest potential emotionally. So I'll give a quick recap. When you're operating at your full potential in terms of work ethic, that's when you're like putting in all the hours, working really hard, like grinding away. When you are operating at your full potential intellectually, that's when you're bringing your best thinking with you into whatever it is you're focused on. And finally, when you're operating at your full potential emotionally, this is when you are bringing the greatest levels of emotional resilience to the work that you do and to the way that you're showing up at work. So here's how I think about it. When I'm operating at my highest potential intellectually, I am pushing myself to think at the maximum threshold that I am able to. I am pushing myself as far as I can in terms of how deeply I can think about something and how sharply I can problem solve. When I'm operating at my full potential emotionally, instead of me thinking at my best level and being willing to be at my farthest threshold from an intellectual perspective, I'm actually feeling at my deepest level. I'm pushing myself to the farthest possible threshold from an emotional standpoint. I'm going to talk way more about this, so don't worry if it isn't quite clicking yet. But I just want to say that this is the most important thing for building self-confidence, for achieving professional success, and for operating at your full potential. This is something that doesn't get talked about very much in corporate. This is probably what comes up most when I'm supporting my clients because it is the most important thing. And I do think that we often, in our quest for growth, we get a little bit too caught up in the work ethic piece and the intellectual piece, and we tend to not focus at all on the emotional piece. And that is often a reason why we feel stuck in our quest to be showing up at our full potential. So I want to go deeper into what I mean by operating at your full potential on an emotional level. What I mean is that you are making your maximum contribution professionally, regardless of the uncomfortable emotions that come up as you do that. So the way that I think about it is that a lot of the actions that are going to help you have a bigger impact in your role and really show up like a leader, those actions also feel uncomfortable. So an example would be being in a meeting with people who are more experienced than you and contributing your thoughts in that meeting. If you contribute in that room, it is very likely that you're going to feel uncomfortable emotions. You're going to feel emotions like feeling vulnerable, feeling afraid that people are judging you, feeling afraid that you might fail. After you share your idea, you might feel a bit of a vulnerability hangover. You might get stuck in worry about what other people are thinking about your idea. So that intellectual contribution that you make comes with its own set of uncomfortable emotions. This is why I mentioned earlier that the emotional piece is the most important piece. So because that action of sharing your idea elicits so many different uncomfortable emotions, because that's true, when you're sitting in that meeting and you start thinking, oh, like I have an idea, maybe I'll share it, your brain starts calculating and your brain starts thinking, well, hold on. If I share it, how is that going to feel? Am I going to feel uncomfortable? Is that going to feel unpleasant because people are going to be judging me after? And your brain starts thinking and calculating, hey, this is going to feel uncomfortable. Like, are you sure you want to do this? And then often what happens is we decide not to. We decide, you know what? I'm not going to do this. And a lot of times we'll come up with reasons that sound like really good reasons not to do it. Reasons like, I want to be respectful of my boss, right? Like the people in this room, they're the experts. They know what they're talking about. My role is to just listen. So a lot of times our brain offers us reasons that sound good, that sound responsible, that sound like we're doing the quote unquote right thing. But if we dig deeper, what's really happening is that we are sacrificing taking the path of highest impact, and we are sacrificing showing up at our highest potential because of the emotional discomfort that comes with it. And to have a really big impact in your role, you, of course, have to do things that elicit emotional discomfort. Typically, there's a direct tension, like there's a relationship of opposites and opposition between the actions that will have the greatest impact in your role and feeling emotionally comfortable. Usually, some of the biggest impact actions you will take, like suggesting a new idea, right? Being a thought leader, usually those actions are going to come with a level of emotional discomfort. So there's an inherent tension between impact and emotional comfort. And operating at your fullest potential emotionally means that you are showing up and taking the uncomfortable action as much as you are able to handle. So when your brain tries to talk you out of it and your brain says, don't speak up, that's going to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to feel uncomfortable. Just keep it to yourself. Stay safe. Stay quiet. Keep everything as it is. Don't shake things up. Don't make this hard for yourself. When your brain says that, you operating at your highest level of potential emotionally looks like you pausing and saying, hold on a minute. If I share this, it is going to be uncomfortable for sure. But is that a level of discomfort I can handle? Am I opting out because it'll totally debilitate me and I won't even be able to survive? Or am I opting out because I don't like it? Because if I'm opting out because I don't like it, but I could still handle it and I could do it, then that's me not operating at my full potential because I'm giving up an action that I am capable of taking just so I can feel comfortable. So operating at 100% of your capability emotionally means you are showing up, speaking up, sharing your thoughts, being a thought leader, taking those bold, scary actions, even if it feels uncomfortable. You are operating at the highest threshold of your emotional capacity. You are taking on as much action as you possibly can, even if it feels uncomfortable. And you can say to yourself at the end of the day, I didn't opt out just because it was uncomfortable. Even though it was uncomfortable, I still did it. That's how I know I'm operating at 100% of my emotional potential. Now, here's why we feel stuck, and here's why so many people have this experience of I'm not operating at my full potential, but I'm working really hard, and I can't quite figure out why. It's because across these three pillars, typically, people are operating at 100% of their full potential when it comes to work ethic. They're operating at about 50 to 75% of their full potential when it comes to intellect. And then they're typically operating at around the 50% mark, maybe lower, maybe higher when it comes to emotional potential. But they haven't separated those things out to really see the differences. And so it just feels like, I'm working hard and I'm putting in a lot of effort, but I don't feel like I'm achieving my full potential, but I'm not sure why and I'm not sure how to move forward. The path to move forward is to separate these things out and figure out which of them are your opportunities for growth. This is the work that I do with my clients. I'm helping them figure out where they're not showing up as a leader on an intellectual level, and I'm helping them increase their emotional resilience so that they can more often show up as a leader at an emotional level. Now, here's the thing. Operating at your full potential at an emotional level is challenging. If I said it was easy, I wouldn't be telling you the truth. This is the hardest work, but this is the work of becoming a leader. This is the work of building lasting confidence. And I will say that even though this work will challenge you, possibly more than anything has challenged you before, it will also make you more strong and more confident than you have ever felt before. Because what happens is, as you start practicing operating at your full potential, both intellectually and emotionally, what starts to happen is you watch yourself doing things that you thought you weren't able to do before. You thought you weren't smart enough to add something valuable to the conversation, and you just watched yourself do it. You thought that you weren't strong enough to speak up because you felt really scared, and you just watched yourself do it. You watch yourself busting past these walls that you thought you had, and then your idea of who you are changes because you thought, this is the most I can do. The most that I can do and bring into this room is to be quiet and let other people contribute because they're smarter than me. They know more than me. And you see that that was wrong. You see, I thought I wasn't capable. I thought I couldn't do this. I thought I couldn't handle this. I was wrong. And then you start thinking, holy shiz, what else was I wrong about? What other things did I think I can't do that I can do and that I could do all along? What other rooms have I been in all my life where I thought I wasn't smart enough and I was smart enough all along? What challenges have I been struggling with my entire life where I thought I couldn't handle it and I was strong enough to handle it all along? Every time you stretch yourself to show up at your full capacity intellectually and emotionally, your understanding of who you are and what you're capable of grows. And that growth in how you see yourself builds a confidence within you that you carry with you into the next room and the next conversation and the next situation. So it's like every time you challenge yourself to get closer to your fullest potential intellectually and emotionally, you become better at it. You become stronger. And all the while, you're starting to have a bigger impact in your role. You're starting to finally show up as a leader. You're starting to really have that feeling that you want to feel of you showing up at your fullest potential. And the best part is, people outside of you start to see it. And they start to acknowledge it and you start to get rewarded for it. And that increases your confidence even more. So while it might be really scary to speak up because it means that you have to face a difficult feeling and you have to face discomfort, I want you to also think about all of the benefits that it's going to create for you as you become more emotionally resilient, as you learn to operate closer to your fullest potential, as people see you having that bigger impact. Because in the moment when it feels scary, we often forget about all the good things, all of the wonderful things that we are going to experience in our lives because we were willing to challenge ourselves and do the scary thing and feel uncomfortable. And what's so cool about this is that as you get better at taking scary action, and as you get better at operating at 100% of your potential emotionally, what happens is your 100% thresholds start to rise. So I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, like we all have our ceiling point where we're operating at our maximum level of potential, and that ceiling can go up as we get more confident and better and more skilled. And typically what happens is, as you operate closer and closer to your fullest emotional potential, you become so confident that your ceiling for your intellectual potential gets higher. In other words, like your thinking gets better and sharper because you're feeling so strong and confident that your intellect becomes fueled by that confidence and you start generating deeper thoughts, higher quality ideas. And just like your ceiling on your intellectual potential can go up, your ceiling on your emotional threshold, like your highest potential from an emotional standpoint, can also go up. Because as you do uncomfortable things and as you watch yourself accumulate wins through doing those uncomfortable things, you feel stronger inside and you become better at showing up big and bold in difficult situations. And the situations that used to feel super difficult emotionally start to feel more manageable. And in fact, I bet that you can think of a situation that used to feel unmanageable for you emotionally that now feels more manageable. So that process of something going from very difficult to feeling like something that you can handle, you can speed that up by challenging yourself more often and more frequently to do the emotionally uncomfortable thing. And as you do that, your ceiling for what you're able to handle is going to go up, and the things that used to feel hard are going to start to feel easier. So I know this was a really long episode. I want to leave you with a quick summary so that you have something to take away here. And that summary is this. If you feel like you're not operating at your full potential, but you're working pretty hard and you can't figure out why, one of the best things you can do is separate out the 3 different ways of operating at your fullest potential to figure out which of those 3 ways is your growth opportunity. So you can be operating at your full potential from a work ethic perspective. That means you're putting in the hours, you're working really hard. You can be operating at your full potential from an intellectual perspective. That means you're committed to always bringing your best thinking and problem solving to any situation. And you can be operating at your fullest potential from an emotional perspective. That means that you are willing to experience emotional discomfort for the sake of having a bigger impact. And I want you to figure out which of those specifically is your growth opportunity, because that is going to help you find the places where you're going to want to push yourself to show up bigger, to take up more space. And that is what is going to help you get unstuck. And that is what is going to start to give you that feeling of operating at your full potential. There is no better feeling than this feeling. And while it can be challenging to build it and to get there, it is possible. I have helped so many women do it, and it is worth putting in the effort. And if this is work that you want to do under my guidance and with support and structure to help you build these internal capacities, this is a huge part of what I help you with in the Art of Speaking Up Academy. The Art of Speaking Up Academy is dedicated to helping you find your voice and become a more powerful contributor in the room. And I know that for you to achieve that, what will truly enable that is going deeper than the surface level frameworks, deeper than the tactics, and into the emotional work that will help you feel strong enough to bravely face those difficult situations. The truth is, operating at your full potential, being a strong voice in the room, like showing up as a leader, that is an inside job, and that inner work is the work that I do with my clients, and I would love to get to do it with you. The best way for you to take a next step towards that is to add yourself to the waitlist for the Art of Speaking Up Academy, which I will link in the show notes. And when you join the waitlist, number 1, you are going to be notified as soon as enrollment opens. And number 2, you're going to qualify for valuable waitlist-only bonuses that are included in your enrollment. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I had so much fun recording this. I hope you loved it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!